Hey, what's up everyone? Sean here, and welcome to another new video. Now, I thought it'd be fun to kind of do a kind of a reflection video about, now some of you may have not have been old or alive when some of this came out, but I was thinking about social media in general a little bit, and just like actual like social media, not like even apps like Instagram or TikTok, whatever it might be. All those are part of it too. But I was thinking back to an earlier part of my life of when social media started essentially, and we can even go back to like blogging and even how like even before MySpace existed, and just thinking through all of that over the years and how it's really changed our not only our human interactions but how we think about the world and how the world is interacted in its own sense, and how to where we are now, where we have so many different obviously apps out there, and we are kind of like conditioned to now be used to even AI, which is not really technically social media, but it can be because we can communicate with it, which is social media in general is just communication. But I just thought it'd be kind of a fun thing to reflect on the past 20-25 years of social media, of when it first kind of started. I'm not gonna go through like everything like super in detail, but just a fun kind of like summarized reflection of that stuff, of that over time, and how again how it's changed everything for for the better in many cases, and also for the worse in many cases too. And so I remember like I don't know the names of every like blog back in the day, but I remember when there was stuff like Tumblr, and I think Friendster was one thing which I never was part of personally, but that Friendster was exist like the ones before or right around the time of MySpace, when MySpace was huge. And I remember I remember having my PC because I didn't even own a Mac yet, because Macs at that time, I don't remember what year it was, but I remember Macs at that time were very very expensive, like I mean they are anyways nowadays, but they weren't really computer or user friendly yet like they are now. Like they're much more user friendly than they ever used to be. And so I had a PC back then, and I remember the first day, kind of, I think, like relatively speaking, when MySpace became not was invented, but like when I was invited to use it for the first time, and how you had to like make a obviously had to have an email address and make a profile and all that kind of stuff back then. And I remember like just certain parts of it, and it's just obviously changed so much. And I know MySpace still exists, and it's kind of like a skeleton of what it used to be, but just the creation of it really did change everything. Because I remember back then, you'd have like you create a profile with an email address, and I think I saw it for the first time through a friend who already had it, and they introduced me to it. But they're like, "Oh, this is MySpace." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "What's MySpace?" Like, I literally didn't know what the word meant because it was new to me. And he's like, "Oh, it's an online social thing." And it wasn't even really called social media back then. I think they said it was like an online website that you could post um, music on, because you could have like a music profile on your page back in the early days, and you could customize the background of your MySpace page back then, and all that was brand new to me. Like, I was like, "What is this?" Because at the time, again, I only knew of like personal blogs, blogging, and how you could like write like a post, and you actually had to know kind of somewhat sort of a little bit of coding, a teeny bit, to get your blog post or your MySpace back in the day to be like fancy in a way, and have it have some flash to it and have it be interactive. But what was cool and what was rad about that stuff back then was that it was very fun, and you could really alter customize your page or your blog to be whatever you wanted it to be. It was not like a simplified lockdown system to where it is nowadays in any way. And that was part of the fun of MySpace to me, was the fact that you could again choose a profile song that would play whenever anyone visited your page. You could then also, I think it was like, have like a top 6 friends or top 8 or whatever it was, a top friends list that you could you could also customize. And what was crazy about that was the fact that people would like take it so seriously, because they're like, "Oh, I'm not in your top friends list anymore. What's the deal?" Like if there was like a breakup that happened, or people just like stop being friends, or whatever the case was, there was a big drama back in the day when that actually happened, and people would get in fights, or at least in my friend group, it became like a fight kind of thing, or like a discussion of what happened and why. And for me, I always just only did music, like bands I listened to, and that was also the beginning of kind of, in a way, of the end, like a beginning of the end of when bands' websites were used as a primary everything for announcements. Like, I mean, they still exist. Obviously, every band for the most part has now for tour dates and things like that, or for their shop to buy stuff or to pre-order stuff. They'll have their website, which is still there, but not anything like it was back then. Because back then it was, if you wanted to know about this band, you'd have to go to their website. There was no online anything yet for bands to do that, and there was still CDs were still in stores. So you couldn't go to a app because it didn't exist yet and search for whatever it was and download their whole discography in 15 seconds. You had to actually, like, if you were told about a band, you'd have to be told like literally how to spell it, and if it was .net, .com, whatever it was back then, and go to their website, and if they had a decent website developer on their team for management, then it would be a good looking website, and they'd have again their store on there which was like very early in the stages of e-commerce, even when shipping could be very slow or not work at all in some cases. Like I remember buying or pre-ordering CDs from bands back in the day before MySpace even existed, when like when I pre-ordered it and like the shipping address wouldn't type in correctly, and just things like just didn't work very well. It was the very beginning of like modern mainstream e-commerce even, and sometimes the links between the website and the shop didn't work and all that kind of stuff. So that was the beginning of like all that stuff, I feel like, for that kind of era. And that's also where tour dates were announced, if it was music stuff or movies or whatever it was. And then we got into, right around then, I think it was a mixture between, and again I don't know the years, but we got into like a mixture of of downloading music illegally, essentially, of like streaming and peer-to-peer file sharing and all that kind of stuff, which again is not directly social media, but it was still sharing things online. And I remember Napster and LimeWire and all those things where it was like you would download it, hope it was the right version, and it worked on your computer. So it was like 40 versions of software back then, and then you'd have to download a link to your computer and hope it wasn't a virus at the time and all that crazy stuff. And then again, and then we had MySpace. Again, there was also those personal blogs too out there as well, but there was MySpace started as a thing, and again, you could go then at that point go to again, I'll just using music again, but you can go to a band's profile page, you could follow them or like them, whatever it was, and then and then your entire feed, essentially your entire feed at the time would be whatever you liked at that time, I think it was. And unlike, there was no ads that I remember, or if there was ads, I didn't really know where they were. I forget where they were nowadays, but it was a lot less ads. It was much more. MySpace was always much more about connecting with people and seeing what they were up to. And I remember the PC for PC thing being a thing, which meant like picture comment for picture comment, where you would go to like some person's profile on MySpace who you didn't know, but they liked the same band as you did, and you could leave a comment, and then they leave a comment for you. It was just like you didn't know them at all, but that's how it was back in the day. Like right after blogs kind of got a little bit phased out, then it was MySpace. And then I remember being on MySpace for a couple of years, and then Facebook started. Now I remember when I was told about Facebook, I don't remember who it was anymore, but I remember someone when it was mentioned to me of what it was, they were like, because again back then there was no apps yet. Smartphones didn't exist yet. So I remember when the first person told me about Facebook, they were like, yeah, they described it as a cleaner, more simplified version of MySpace, and I didn't know what that meant at the time. I think it was right after, obviously it went public because Facebook was initially a college only, invite only, I think, from what the movies have told me and all that kind of stuff, social media sites that was only for college students at that time. And then it went public, I believe, obviously, I don't know what year it was, and then I got invited to Facebook, and then I remember like registering for it, but I didn't use it personally for a couple of years. It wasn't there yet for usability. Like it worked and stuff like that, but it wasn't as customizable or as usable or as friendly and fun and colorful as MySpace was. So I stayed off of it for a while until I started seeing more and more people be like, oh yeah, here's my, because you had to, for the most part at that time, use your real name. Like you couldn't use like a username or whatever it was, because MySpace again was primarily was created account wise off of your email address, whereas on Facebook, for the most part, it's always been off of your real name or your intended real name, as well as an email. And then I remember Facebook kept blowing up and going crazy. And then, of course, Facebook has gone through since then, like a billion infinite changes. It's changing every 3 or 4 hours. It seems like, and whether it's good or bad, and ads everywhere and all that kind of stuff. And it's way, way, way worse now, in my opinion, than it ever used to be. I still use it only for tour announcements and for movie trailers and things of consumption, not for anything like news wise, because it's not really helpful anymore. It's all ads and that kind of thing. But I remember when Facebook took over for the most part, overall for what it was, and I remember then the kind of like the downfall, if you will, or the decline of MySpace, where people didn't want to do anything anymore online for customization. Like the whole customization that was a exciting thing at the time for MySpace kind of faded out, and people just wanted to be able to connect together and share photos and do basic things that Facebook was better for overall than MySpace was. And I remember Facebook was a lot cleaner and simpler and quicker to load, because I remember if you went to someone's MySpace page, if they had like a profile song and a bunch of, because you could even set your background to a photo, and if you did that, it took a long, long, long time to load. Because again, this is all before we had quick internet too at our homes. Like back then, it was dial-up, so like a heavy data page of someone's MySpace profile could take a minute to load. Whereas Facebook was very clean, you couldn't do that. So it was very simplified and clean and clear and all that stuff. It was primarily about just being friends with people, connecting and writing on their wall, and that was about it. And it was just simplified for that kind of thing. And that's where we've been since then overall. Before apps, before the app stores, before smartphones, that's where it was. And then we get to 2007. I mean, we had smartphones obviously before the iPhone, but it was Blackberries, RIM, Blackberries. There was the Palm Trio, a bunch of different Palm versions, and they all had, even like the Sidekick. I remember I had a Sidekick, and the Sidekick was cool. It was fun for what it was, but it was still a baby internet. But it was the closest that we ever had at that point to a desktop kind of style. And I knew, it's funny. I remember seeing, because I had a Sidekick ID phone, I think it was, and it was a really cool thing. Like it was the full QWERTY keyboard that was not BlackBerry. That was easier to use, and it had this flip up screen, and that was fun to use too. And you could use and go to like the real websites, but it was all like the way it was formatted was terrible. It was like I remember using MySpace on it, and it would like layer a page horribly. So like the top and the bottom of the website, whatever you were at, would be stacked, and I don't know what the technical term for it is, but it was terrible looking. You could still scroll through it, and it wouldn't like break on you or crash, but it was a terrible, horrible looking kind of scrolling process on a Sidekick. And then I remember that the BlackBerry, I don't remember which one it was, but they tried or attempted to do a version of the full internet too, and it was the same kind of bad experience overall. And then Apple came out with the iPhone, the first iPhone in 2007, and although it was very, 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 very slow for what it was. I mean, back then it was quick, but it was the full internet. And I remember when it came out that they had I forget what the actual name of it was right now, but the any like QuickTime player, I think it was, or the what was that, Adobe Flash, if you remember that. Adobe Flash was a thing back then, and coding wasn't there yet for programming for websites on a mobile device. So there would be a lot of like not loadable images or animations or whatever on many websites on the first iPhone. They got it fixed over time. But I remember the first iPhone, for the price of it, because at the time, if you got a Sidekick or like a G1 phone, remember that, the first Google phone, the first Google smartphone, if you got one of those things, they had a good looking, okay to use internet, and they were free on contract, or like $100 on a contract with whatever carrier or T-Mobile, whatever it was. But then iPhone came out, and then it was a subsidized device, so you had to pay like I think like a couple $100 on a 2-year contract, and then you get the phone on a 2-year contract and that kind of thing. But I remember and then again, there was no App Store yet. The App Store did not exist yet, and so you'd have to plug it in and sync it to your computer, whether it was PC or Mac, didn't matter. You'd have to take your music from your iTunes library, put it into a playlist, sync it to your phone, and that's how you got music on your phone back then, because there was no streaming yet. But I remember the camera was, I think, like 1.2 megapixels. I think it was 1.2 megapixels, if I'm not mistaken. Very, very small. Didn't have a flash on the first iPhone yet, like on the back, but it worked. It was a smartphone that had a full desktop class internet browser. And then from there, every single year for the last 20 years, we've gotten a new smartphone, and again, infinite competition. But then I think, to me, the biggest jump forward in all this stuff in social media really was when Apple announced the App Store, when they allowed third-party developers, people that did not work for Apple, essentially, the ability to go on and become a developer, essentially, that didn't work for them, make an app that had to be approved by them, still does obviously, and then put it on their store or on the App Store, and then you could download apps to your phone, and that changed everything. And we have never looked back since then. And what's cool about that, the positive side of that, is that it has changed everything forever, and invented industries, created industries, ruined industries in some cases, given people new jobs, and given us the ability to do things that I never ever thought was capable back then. I remember downloading Instagram for the first time, like old Instagram, like original Instagram, OG Instagram, when you could only post a photo of a square size, whatever size that was for orientation, and then there was actual like 4 or 5 different overlays of actual camera overlays on Instagram that you could use to overlay your photo, and they were good and cool looking back then too. And now Instagram isn't even a photos app. I mean, you can make a photo on there, you can post a photo, but it's all reels and reels and video and all this stuff, which is fine. Again, it's whatever. But again, so I deeply appreciate the advancements that we've gotten from the App Store on both sides of the spectrum, from iOS to Android, because Ubering and DoorDash and buying movie tickets online and having the ability to buy tickets for any concert in the world that I want to if I want to go to a show like that, or any of those things all exist now because of the App Store and how Apple allowed third-party developers to, again, go on and make apps and make money off of it and things like that, and how that has changed everything for the better. Now, of course, there's a lot of negative sides to it too. I'm not going to dive really far deep into that in this video because I don't really want to reflect on that, because I think overall the App Store, third-party apps, and even just what it's done for humanity is a good thing, because it's given people a lot more freedom in a way to elevate their lives in a lot of ways, or earn money in ways that they couldn't prior. It's made life easier for things when, like, I mean, I remember back in the day thinking and wishing, like, oh, I wish there was a way I could order, like, whatever, like, Starbucks from home when I don't have a car and have it delivered to me and pay like $5 or whatever it is for a tip, and then someone could bring it to me. As lazy as that sounds, like, I thought that would be cool, and I can do that. It wasn't called DoorDash, or I mean, that didn't exist yet, but it was a cool thing that I thought would be fun. I remember even when the first iPod video came out with a small screen still. And I remember thinking, like, oh, it would be cool if I could have a full touch screen that I could watch a music video on, and have it there forever. And now you can do that, like, as, like, obviously no problem. So I think that the smartphone, to me at least, is the best invention, and so for sure the App Store, since the computer, because of how you can do pretty much whatever you want on it for the most part, and it elevates everyone to a different level. And I mean, obviously now in 2026 we're all very used to it, and every couple of years a new app will come out that'll go crazy, viral, trendy. Like, I remember when it was Snapchat, I remember when it was Facebook, I remember now I remember, now it's obviously, been TikTok for a few years, now it takes over. But the coolest thing about tech to me, or one of the coolest things about technology to me, is how every couple of years something that brand new comes out that everyone can get access to for free, initially at least, and it blows everything else away. It makes everything else look antiquated and old and not worthy anymore, and then that in turn makes all these other developers of all these other companies and apps have to step up and redo what they're doing. It elevates all that up, and that's one thing I love about technology, and especially smartphones and computers, is that there's always someone wanting to and trying to invent and reinvent whatever's possible with a device, and it's possible, then they do it, and then everyone else has to join the party and make better stuff, and that's so cool. And I love that. I'll never stop enjoying that part of technology, because it's how we got to where we are today. and it makes me really, really excited for the future, as well for just technology in general. So I'll leave it with that for now in this video. But of course, in the comments, as always, let me know what you think about just the overall technology evolution of the last 20-25 years of what's been out. If you were alive back when the first iPhone came out, or if you were like me, when you downloaded downloaded Instagram for the first time, and what that felt like, and how crazy it was back then to where it is now. So of course, let me know, just let me know your feelings in the comments below. Of course, as always, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and of course, subscribe for more technology content. Thanks for watching as always, and I will see you all in the next one.